today's video, I'm going to be showing you another purse. So far this is the third one in an unofficial purse series. I also have a Louis Vuitton purse, which honestly is my favorite. And then I also have a Chanel purse that's a little bit older and a slightly different technique. And I can put links to both of those in the description box below, so check for those. This one is a very classic Coach design, very classic Coach shape. It's just like a bucket purse, and then it has the C logo going across the entire thing with a brightly colored strap. It's just one that I would say is very recognizable as Coach, even though a lot of their designs lately have been a little bit less classical. They've been doing a lot of patchwork and a lot of other things that you could certainly do to do a Coach themed purse, but if you want to instantly have most people look at it and know what brand it is, I would stick with just the classic C's to make it that recognizable. I hope you love it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. We are going to begin with an overlay of a shimmery light pink, kind of a nude color acrylic, not something that's overly extravagantly pink, but just gives a little bit of a pink hue in the background. After that's done, I'm going to encapsulate it with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure it is nice and strong. That color in particular probably would have been just fine had I sculpted it thick enough to just have the one layer. I personally love the look of encapsulation, and I think it really makes things look extra deep and like there's a shadow when you put something on top of it. Some people really dislike encapsulation, so when it comes to your product system, know what works for you, and you can always skip it if it works. I'm going to be using the Madam Glam pudding gels for this. The first one I'm going to be using is the color called Peanut, and I'm going to be painting a big section of that color as my material to be making my purse out of. So I'm just going to sort of buff it into my silicone mat. These products are very, very pigmented, and they're a slightly thick consistency, and when you apply them over something like a base coat that's on a nail, they spread out very easily. My silicone mat is not nearly as slippery as gel base coat is, and so I had to really work it into that silicone mat. It did work, however, and it turned out very beautifully. I just wanted to mention that as to the reason why I had to kind of like really press it into the mat. So now I'm going to be switching to the color Cinnamon, and I do want to say that these pudding gels aren't necessarily the best things to be using for detail work, but this color was just so perfect that I used it anyway. And the reason they aren't maybe the best thing to be using for detail work is because they're a little stretchy. So as you're painting with them, they kind of stretch, which sometimes is good, but when you're trying to just get like a little dot of something, they don't really like to do that, which did make this process take a little longer for me than I possibly hoped that it would. Painting this material was something that was extraordinarily time consuming. That's okay though. It's kind of like a meditation process too, because you're just being very repetitive, painting two C's that are facing each other, then two C's that are facing up, together, up, so on and so forth for the first row. When you're painting this Coach logo pattern, it is repetitive and it's in two different sections of rows. So it's the same way, like I said, two C's that are facing each other and then two that are facing up. The next row is going to be two C's that are facing each other, but they're upside down, and then two C's that are facing down. So it's the same thing, but it's one going one way and then one just kind of flipping it over. After you have the entire piece of your gel polish material painted with this pattern, which, like I said, is time consuming, block out plenty of time for yourself to do this. By the end of it, you're probably going to be going cross-eyed and thinking, why did I decide to do this? This was a horrible idea, because it just sort of happens that way, especially when you're doing something that takes this amount of time and it's the same thing. Or maybe you'll love the whole entire process and you won't be going crazy at all. Depends on the person. Like I said, it's kind of meditative. But once you're done, you're going to be applying a thin coat of gel top coat, no wipe gel top coat. I do recommend Madam Glam's as it does retain a flexibility that many brands do not of their top coat. We're going to remove as much of that extra top coat as we possibly can and then cure that again. Once it's all been cured, peel that off of your silicone mat and you're ready to start making your template. I'm going to draw out the sides of my purse, so the size that I want them to be. I'm going to make these a rectangle, and then I'm going to draw a shape that's the bottom, and I'm going to make just kind of an eyeball line of how big the whole bottom needs to be, because you need the bottom of the purse and then it to go up the sides. Make these a little bit bigger, a little wider than what you initially drew, so that you have room to tuck the material underneath the sides of the purse, and then go ahead and cut out these shapes. Those little end tabs I made to be attaching the hoops that hold the purse strap on, I ended up getting rid of those and cutting them off for a couple of reasons. I attached them in a different way than I initially planned to, and because I did not have enough length on my material to do it that way. So it works out one way or another. I actually like the way I ended up doing it at the end better than what I thought I would anyway. So we're going to cut those out. We're going to just cut out the shape altogether, cut out the side. We're going to need to make two of that front piece. So I'm going to lay that. I'm going to tip my material over so that the bottom is up. I'm going to lay my template over the top of it, draw around it with a Sharpie.
use a fine point Sharpie or one of like the ultra fine Sharpies, and it can be any color because you won't see it in the end anyways, but something that's somewhat neutral, like say I used a red one that while I can see it, it isn't going to be that visible, or if you do happen to leave a little bit on top, it isn't going to be too damaging. We're going to trace everything, and then I'm going to make 2 skinny little rectangles that are going to be the bit of material that will hold those flaps on, or the little rings on. Once your material has been completely doodled over with your template, you're going to cut all of the pieces out that you need. So I'm going to cut out the bottom piece first, and then I'm going to make little cuts in on the sides right there. You can kind of pre-fold those if you want to. Be very careful with it, as the gel polish will possibly run a tendency of ripping. So whenever you're, folding anything or pulling on it, just be very careful with it so that you don't accidentally rip it, especially if you don't have much extra material, like I pretty much used every little bit I had. So if you end up ripping it, you may be starting part of the process over again. So just be careful. Once you have all those little pieces made, save your scraps. You never know what you might possibly need them for. I'm going to fold those edges in, and I'm going to attach the first side of my coach, the front of the coach purse, to the bottom. I'm using clear builder gel as my glue for all of these little pieces. You could also use nail glue, but nail glue doesn't really like to stick to shiny things like the gel top coat. And so if you are going to be using some nail glue, you may consider using matte top coat instead of glossy top coat for the surface of the purse. Going to glue the back on just like we did the front, or attach it. It's not really being glued. And I'm going to fold on those little side pieces. I'm going to fold in the sides of the sides. So we're just going to carefully do that with our fingers. The pudding gel that I use to create the base of this purse is very, very flexible and really makes a nice base for creating something like this. Otherwise, the majority of Madame Glam's gel polishes are just as flexible. The only other brand I've come across that I really find would work for this is C&D's Shellac. But personally, I don't like their formula nearly as much as Madame Glam, so depending on what you're looking for, I would stick with the Madame Glam. And they're cruelty-free, which, is just an extra little added bonus there. So we've got that first one, and then we're going to be doing the second one, the second side. So do the front of both of the sides of the purse, and then go through and do the back. Flash cure that. After a couple of these side pieces, you may consider doing a full cure just to make sure it's not going to fall apart on you. Or if you feel secure in your purse, you can go ahead and just do a full cure at the very end of this stage. Cure the inside of that to make sure that that's all going to stay together. And then I really do recommend making sure that that's fully cured. Once it is fully cured, you can go ahead and trim if there's any bits of gel polish that are sticking off to the sides anywhere. I'm going to re-secure some of that inside. Just keep adding more. Anytime something wiggles on you or seems a little loose, add a little bit more builder gel and flash cure it again, full cure it again, just to make sure that it isn't going to be too loose and fall apart. That's the last thing you want after you've spent this much time working on something, is for it to just crumble in your hands. We're going to trim those top sides just a little bit, make sure that they aren't sticking up beyond the top edge of the purse. Once you're happy with the basic shape of your little purse, then you can go ahead and you're going to take one of those little scraps that are skinny. You're going to wrap it around a little jump ring so that it's making a U shape on it. Close the end of it to hold it in place. Flash cure it again. And then you're going to have to make a second one of those so that there's one for each side of the strap to be attached to. When you're making the second one, if you want to, you might want to open it up a little bit so that it isn't closed. I didn't do that. I opened mine up later, but if you think about it ahead of time, you may want to just leave that one open if you plan to add a charm or a keychain to your purse, which Coach is somewhat known for, is all their keychains. But if you don't and you leave it closed, you can always open it up later, but it's just if you have the foresight, you might as well do that. I'm going to attach the first charm, or the first little loop, inside the purse, just like so. Flash cure it. My flash cure flashlight needs new batteries, so it was arguing with me as to whether or not it wanted to stay on right there. Then we're going to repeat with the other side. Flip the purse over, add the second one. After they've both been flash cured, you are going to need to put that into your lamp to fully cure yet again. I know that doesn't surprise anybody, but I always like to mention it just in case you forget. So now on a nail form backing with some acrylic, I'm going to be sculpting my charm. And there are so many different ones that Coach, like I said, they're known for their keychains. And I was trying to think of what I wanted to do, and I knew that I was going to be using the cherry pudding gel for the strap of my purse, which is a really bright, kind of a corally pinkish reddish color. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to be using a color called cherry, I might as well sculpt some cherries. So I'm going to do some glittery red circles for the cherries, and then for the stems, I'm using metallic gold. So we're going to be sculpting those into place. Don't sculpt them too thin or they're going to be very fragile and break. So you want to make sure as you're sculpting these that even if it's not quite as aesthetically pleasing to have them be a little bit on the chunky side, you do it anyway just to make sure that they aren't going to just, like I said, just break. That's no fun. And then with a dark green, again, kind of shimmery or metallic, we're going to be adding a couple leaves on this. Everything about this charm should have either metallic quality or a glitter to it. It should be very sparkly. Most of Coach's purses are, just sort of neutral, but then they have these little sparkly elements to make them a little more jazzy. That I like those little sparkly elements better than the purses. So we're going to be having the circle on the top is what's going to hold the keychain onto the little loop. Open your ring up. I suggest using 2 little pliers to help you out with that. And then you're going to string that little charm onto that jump ring, and you can close it back up. If you can get your tweezers to do it, go for it. Otherwise, you may need pliers, like I said. Then using the cherry pudding gel, I'm going to apply a strip of that and then some gel top coat. And then after both have been cured, I'm going to be peeling it off and cutting it into a long, thin strip. So just use your manicure scissors, cut slowly so that you don't accidentally have it be thicker on one end than the other. Just be careful about it so that it's nice and even. After that's done, you can get rid of those scraps, trim off the ends so that they're nice and square. And then you have your strap. So you can string it through one of those loops, just like you did to attach them to the purse with those other little strips. A little bit of builder gel, fold it over, hold it in place, flash cure, and then repeat for the other side. Same basic process as like what you did to attach the rings to the purse in the first place. The second one is a little trickier because you do have to work around your cherries, but you can get it in place without too much struggle. Luckily, like I said, that pudding gel does stay so flexible that it isn't a big deal in order to stick it down. We're going to attach it down. I did not fully close my jump ring, so I don't know if you guys can tell, but it opened up. I'm going to rehook it on to that little strap that's on the purse, and it's all good to go. After that's been fully cured, apply more of that clear builder gel onto the nail in a nice thick layer. Place your purse down, and then you're going to flash cure underneath that and then cure it. When you go to cure it, tip the nail on its side so it cures underneath it. And then I'm going to be applying some jewelry gel around the purse here and there on the nail to add a little bit more embellishment. Coach, like I said, fairly plain purses with lots of extravagant little glitzy details around it. Going to apply some matte gel top coat around the nail over the top of that uncured jewelry gel, and then press in my rhinestones and charms. I have a few red ones. I'm going to use some little heart metallic studs that are gold, as well as some metallic gold stars, and just apply a little bit. I'm not going to bombard the nail. I'm going to keep it more on the simple sort of dotted scale, so it's not a full, rhinestone encrusted nail, just a little bit here and there to add that glamour. Back to our nail form backing, I'm going to be making a phone to have as my accessory. Coach also has a whole line of cell phone cases, so I figured that would be the nice little thing to add to it. If you didn't want to do a cell phone, you could certainly make a wallet. If you are curious about how to make a wallet with this kind of a technique and this type of a style, I would direct you towards my Louis Vuitton video that I uploaded not terribly long ago, where I did make a 4D wallet and credit card and a piece of money and all sorts of really cool stuff. And if you wanted to see that and see how you could do that and make it Coach, you would do the same patterning for Coach instead of the Louis Vuitton, and then you could simply, fold it and cut it the same way as I did for that other video. For our little phone, after we have our rectangle sculpted with the black, I'm going to be painting the case on it with the same peanut colored pudding gel, and then I'm going to grab the cinnamon and I'm going to be painting my little C's logo. And as you can see, it's a lot easier to see it with the angle for this as far as what the little logo looks like. The reflection was so strong when I was painting the material, it was almost impossible to see what I was doing. So we've got the C's facing each other, and then the C's facing up, and then the C's facing each other. This time you're going to be avoiding the little place in the phone case where it would not have any case because it would be impeding the cameras. So just leave that little square of black empty, and then you're going to be adding the rest. Just keep adding those little C's all the way around. I did not paint the sides of the phone. If you wanted to, you certainly could. I just ended the pattern right on the back of the case with a little bit of white gel paint. I'm going to be adding a little highlight for where the camera would be with a bit of blue in the middle, some matte top coat over the case, leaving that little bit where the black shows without any top coat. The Madame Glam gel paint does not require top coat, so as long as you use gel paint to add those little details, they can just be left alone. Apply the matte top coat around the sides, and then I'm going to go back with my peanut, flip the phone over so that I can just apply a very thin coat of that color right around the very edge of the phone. After that has been applied, you're also going to need to finish that with some matte top coat right along the edge. Add a second coat of that top coat so that it doesn't wear off. And with the white gel paint, I added just a very thin line for where the phone's speaker would be for when you're listening to somebody on the phone. Well, after that's done, I'm going to take some gel, some clear builder gel, like we've been using for everything else, this time on a brush, and I'm going to be applying a little bit of that to the phone screen. If you are using a self-leveling builder gel, it'll level itself out and it'll get that glassy, smooth look of a cell phone screen. Apply a little layer of gel sealer over the top of that to really amp up the shine, and then that's done. You have a little cell phone, you have a little purse, you have a charm. It is so cute. I do have those other purse videos that I've mentioned before. I will definitely recommend you check those out. They're each done in a different way as far as, you know, the process made. So if you are looking into making a purse and you want to see maybe a different option, especially the Chanel purse is a different technique altogether, I highly recommend you check those out. And otherwise, this design is done. I love it so much. I hope you guys like it too, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!